Catch. There we go. How's everybody doing? Good, good. Thanks for coming out again. We're been working on stuff and continues to come together that much more on the trip. And so I hope you're all excited about this. It should be good. I think I'm supposed to hold this up here like this. We wanted to just do a little bit of an icebreaker question, just to start us off, remind us of your name. We've got some newer people with us, so good to keep familiarizing ourselves with each other. At some point soon, I'll do a directory so that we can kind of know each other. And, so if you have a favorite photo of yourself that you really like to share, that's always helpful. Again, can everybody hear me at home okay? Thumbs up. All right. Except for Jan. Brian and Joan can. So Jan, if you can maybe hold your phone up, I guess that might be the way to do it. Put it on speaker and maybe listen that way. She can't hear me to even say that. So, oh well. Hopefully, can they see me this way if I'm facing this way?
Yep.
Okay.
On the screen.
Okay, good. So, who wants to start off kind of just saying your name and a little bit about yourself? Dale. Oh, I'm going to do this. You're going to pass this around. So hold it up to your mouth, kind of towards your.
And what you're excited about on the trip?
What you're excited about.
I'm Dale Wested, and I'm looking forward to the trip. It's been places I haven't been to before. Some of them I have been to before, but under very, very different circumstances. So I'm looking forward to learning more about the footsteps of Paul and having a good time.
Awesome. Can everybody hear him online? Give me a thumbs up. All right, it's working. All right. So hold it kind of towards your chin.
Okay. And we're Bob and Karen Davis, and this is our very first trip out of the country. We're very excited about doing the Footsteps of St. Paul, and kind of being able to see the cradle of our religious faith. And we're excited that it includes a cruise because it's kind of like everything all on the bucket list at one time.
Threw it all in.
Yes, you did.
Everything's good. Yeah. Like I say, this is something new for us and it's exciting. Really happy to be a part of this.
Great.
I'm Pat and I'm new to the group. And this was very serendipity because I used to be at St. John's. Now I live up in Hartford, but I just have completed a full year's study of the New Testament and with our church. And it was really intense, but now I'll be able to revisit places and see new places that I found out about. And I'm really looking forward to that. And I don't have any students to take. Yes. I used to be a teacher.
What church are you at in Hartford?
Well, actually, we are at St. Aidan's Episcopal Church. Yeah. Yeah. So it's great. Yeah. Do you want next?
I'm Marianne. I'm coming from St. Mark's in Waukesha. I'm really looking forward to this trip also. It's kind of like an extension of when I went to Israel a number of years ago. So I'm really anxious to do this part of the trip.
I'm Deb Gerner, and I'm most anxious about seeing Greece. I'm anticipating good stuff. It's always the last time that I had been in Turkey and in Rome. I had done it in a secular sense, and so it's going to be nice to connect the Bible to it. So, and never have done Greece before, so it'll be great. I know it will.
I'm Dan Harrell. This is my wife, Nancy. She's in New York right now. This is our third trip with this group. We just read the book, The Call, and really enjoyed it and are looking forward to the correlation between that book and this trip.
I'm Gail Rennie. I've done this trip before for good reason. I want to do it again for a very good reason. This time, Pastor Paul, who used to be at St. John's, is along. on the trip and is going to be doing our briefing sessions and our debriefing sessions. And after all these years at St. John's, he has always risen to the top with feeding me with things that I never expected. So it is going to be a fabulous trip.
No pressure.
No pressure.
I'll say my name and I'll turn it back over to you and you can finish this up. So Chris Mankey, and was at St. Matthew's with Dan and Nancy for many years. And now I'm the Director of Outreach for Hope. I've been there almost 3 years now. And so it's a synod ministry that I help lead, and it essentially raises money for Central City churches. We have 20 different partners around Milwaukee, all over southeastern Wisconsin. And then the other part to what we do is create partnerships. So help churches become partners with churches, and people get to know each other, and just really help to grow that. So, but I love doing traveling, and these trips are wonderful. And I enjoy other things like Tanzania and El Salvador. And so it's something I love doing. So,
Very good.
Paul.
I'm Paul Bolgren, and nothing personal, but I'm looking forward to going on a trip with my wife. Karen, my wife Karen was supposed to go to Israel with us last fall. As I shared last time, our daughter Hannah was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so Karen stayed home, but today Hannah had her last visit with the oncologist and she got good results. So we're looking forward to going on a trip and getting away from all that stuff for a while. So, and we'll talk to you too. So that's okay. That's okay. All right. And those of you on the screen, you want to introduce yourselves too?
Who wants to go online?
We're Brian and Joan Hilbelink. I'm hoping you can hear us.
Yep, you can.
Okay. This is our first trip overseas. We're really excited to go with this group, and we heard your Israel trip was fantastic. So we are really looking forward to it.
All the descriptors I've heard here now just makes me more eager to go. The skills that you all bring to the trip and the information you'll share.
It's a wonderful trip. So you're gonna love it. Jan, can you hear us? Oh, now we can't hear you. Are you muted? Let's see. See if I can add. Yeah, you are muted. I'm gonna ask you to unmute there. So there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to say anything about what you're excited about going on this trip?
Well, when I saw it first come up in our bulletin for Grace Lutheran Church, what intrigued me is because I know both of you pastors, so I thought that should be a really good trip.
It will be, and we're glad you're coming along. Thanks. All right, and Linda, you want to unmute? There you
Okay, I'm Linda Beck. I'm from central Wisconsin. I live on Lake Arrowhead in Rome. So this is my second time overseas. I did go to a trip to Ireland, but that was 20 years ago. I'm excited about all the parts of it. Jan Reinhardt was the one that invited me. She used to belong to my church before she moved to Milwaukee. Someone said The Call, is that a recommended book to read?
Yes.
St. John's just did it here and everyone really enjoyed it. The Heralds just read it and they were saying that as well. So I can send out a
Okay.
link to that as well, but you'll find it on
Okay.
Amazon. I think they've
And then
even
the
got
other-
study guides with it too. Go ahead.
Okay, the other question is, I finally did get my passport. Do you need that plus the travel agency?
I missed the question. Say it again.
I do have my passport now. It just came.
Great,
Do
great.
you need that plus, and do I call a travel agency with that?
You should make either take a picture of it with your phone of the photo page or
Yeah.
a photocopy of it, and we'll need to get that from you. So yeah, we'll send that to the travel agency. You can send it to me and I can forward it to them, or you can send it directly to them, but we just need a copy of it. You keep your passport.
Okay, where do I find your address?
I'll shoot it to you afterwards, or you can
Okay.
respond to the email I sent out today. Did you get that?
Okay, yeah,
Just, you can, if you take a picture of it, you can shoot it to that email.
okay, Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. We're gonna turn it over to Pastor Paul and let him start presentation, and let me get that going here too. Second, sorry. And there we
All
are.
right. So this time, I'm just going to talk about a couple of the really cool places we're going to go and things we're going to see. So not a whole lot about the Apostle Paul here, because I'm going to talk about Athens, and I'm going to talk about Rome and the Forum in Rome. And so I'm just going to point for the next one. So we live in Grafton. This is the oldest house in Grafton. It was built in 1866. Okay, next one. This is the Acropolis in Athens. This building, the Parthenon, was built 2,500 years ago, and it's not the first Parthenon to stand on that property. And so one of the things that will amaze us about this trip is how old these places are. Okay, next one. And again, to sit, this is a photo we took looking up at the Acropolis at night, to just be there and imagine the history and everything that has happened is one of the really great aspects of this trip. Next. And again, the Parthenon and Athens, the city of Athens is named after Athena. Athena was the daughter of Zeus. She's the great virgin goddess. And the Parthenon, the word Parthenon in Greek means virgin. And so the Parthenon was the temple dedicated to Athena, who was the patron goddess of Athens. And the Parthenon stood on the Acropolis, and Acropolis is a fancy Greek word that just means the high part of the town, high city, because it's the highest part of town. Everybody can see it. You can see the Parthenon for 20, 30 miles when you're driving out, when we go to Corinth. Turn around on the bus as we're leaving Athens, and you'll see the Parthenon up on the hill. Everyone could see it, also easy to defend. And so the Greeks, the ancient Athenians, had this enormous temple complex up on top of the Acropolis, the Parthenon simply being the most important of them all. All right. You're going to hear two dates on this trip that are very important. The first one is 490 BC. And there will not be quizzes on the dates, so don't worry about it. In 490 BC, Greece was invaded by Persia, and Persia was the superpower of the ancient world, modern day Iran. And the Persian army invaded Greece to destroy Greece. And a very famous battle was fought in 490 on the coast of Greece, the Battle of Marathon, where a vastly outnumbered Greek force defeated the armies of Persia and threw them back. And after the Battle of Marathon, a runner was sent to Athens with a message. He ran 26 miles, ran into the city of Athens, said the tradition goes, said one word, Nikomen, we are victorious, and then he dropped dead. And that's the origin of the marathon race. The reason the marathon is 26 miles, 235 yards, is it is supposedly equates the distance that this man, I believe his name was Philostratus, ran from the battlefield at Marathon to Athens to declare the message, we are victorious. 2,500 years later, we still remember what that was all about. Okay, next one. The next date you have to remember is 480 BC, because in 480 BC, the Persians came back. They attempted a second assault. And this was a very famous one. Hollywood loves this one because a group of Spartans, the 300 Spartans, held off the Persians for several days at a narrow pass at a place called Thermopylae, which simply means hot springs in Greek. Okay, all these fancy names, they mean ordinary things. But the Spartans, and if you ever saw the movie The 300, okay, with all those buff guys, based upon that battle at Thermopylae, where these small group of Persians, or a small group of Spartans held off the Persians. We'd like to say they won the war with that, but they didn't. Okay, next one. Because the Persians actually defeated them, went to Athens, and the Athenians, a very interesting military strategy in 480 BC, they abandoned their home city. They abandoned their capital, and they let the Persians destroy Athens. And after the war was done, if you want to go to the next one, when the Athenians, you'll hear about their victory in just a second, when they came back, they took all the remnants from their destroyed Parthenon and they buried them on the hilltop. And when excavations were done about 120 years ago, archaeologists found all these are all the remnants from the very first Acropolis, from the first Parthenon. And you'll be able to go to the Acropolis Museum in Athens, and you'll see all of these amazing fragments. So the Athenians abandoned Athens and they put all their hopes, next one, on a sea battle. And just off the coast of Athens, the Greek fleet, Greece was a maritime power. The Persians were more military land-based power. The Persians were destroyed, decimated by the Greeks at a battle called the Battle of Salamis, which ended the Persian threat on Greece for good. And so those are the 490 and 480. In fact, when we were there in 2018, the Greek government was getting ready for the huge celebration for the 2500th anniversary of the Battle of Salamis. And then COVID came and in 2020, and I don't know if they ever had their celebration. So, but very important ones. Okay. And so then the Greeks came back to Athens and they rebuilt the Parthenon. And they rebuilt everything on top of the Acropolis. And so what we see today are the remnants, the ruins, some of them very nice ruins, of everything that the Greeks rebuilt in the middle to the late 5th century BC after the war with the Persians. Next one. Now, one of the things for us to remember, and it's strange to our minds because we see all these ancient buildings and we see the marble and the limestone, and we just see the marble and the limestone. But the ancients we now know, they painted everything. All those amazing Greek paint statues, the Venus de Milo in the Louvre with the wings, that was all painted. Every statue was painted. The buildings were painted in gaudy colors. They loved bright, bright colors. In fact, in the Acropolis Museum, some of the fragments from the original Parthenon, you can still see some of the paint remaining on it. Next one. Inside the Parthenon was a 40-foot statue of the goddess Athena, gilt in gold. This was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. You'll see another one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world when we're in Ephesus. You won't actually get to see it because it's not there anymore. But on the top of the Acropolis in Ephesus was the Temple of Artemis. That was another one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. So you'll get to see the sites at 2 of them. But this magnificent golden statue stood inside of the Parthenon, right? And outside were all these friezes, all these statues, these low relief 3D statues, all around the outside of the Parthenon, the other buildings. And again, everything would have been painted. So we see this today, but this is what it would have looked like in ancient times. The Romans would be the same way. Okay, next one. Another important building we'll see on the top of the Acropolis is this building called the Erechtheum. And this was another smaller temple dedicated to Athena. Okay, next one. And this is what it originally looked like. And what's important about the Erechtheum is there was a tree. And if you go to the next one, I'll come back to the tree in just a second. There are these women statues on the outside supporting the roof. They're called the Caryatides. And there were 6 of them. And I'll come back to those in just a minute too. Outside of the Erechtheum was an olive tree. And there's still an olive tree today because according to Greek tradition, when Athena came to found the city of Athens, she planted an olive tree on the Acropolis. And the Greeks believed that that tree, and that's probably not the tree, but olive trees lived to be thousands and thousands of years old. Some of the olive trees in the Garden of Gethsemane in Jerusalem might have actually been there when Jesus was alive. So when you see the Erechtheum, what's left of this building, you will see this olive tree. And just remember, Athena planted that to declare this city as her own. And again, with the Caryatids, I think that's how it's pronounced, they would have all been painted. Now, the ones you see there today are all reproductions because the air pollution in Athens was so horrible that they were just being eaten away. And so they are all in the Acropolis Museum with the exception of one, because back in 1819, a British nobleman named Lord Elgin, he visited Athens and he took a whole bunch of stuff home with him back to London, which is now all in the British Museum. Almost all the marble decorations from the Parthenon are now in the British Museum. And one of the Caryatids is also in, this one is also in the British Museum. And there's a big discussion about letting them come back to Greece. I know the Vatican's releasing some part of the friezes from the Acropolis. They are just announced, I think a week or 2 ago, that they'll be returning those to Athens. Okay. There's a lot of other stuff on the Acropolis that doesn't even date to the ancient Greece. This, when you're walking up, you will see this, the remnants called the Odeum. And this is a theater built in the 2nd century AD by the Roman Emperor Hadrian. And you will see his picture a little bit later, because Greece was taken over by the Romans in the 2nd century BC. And so in Paul's time, Rome controlled Greece as well. You will also see from the top of the Acropolis, we talked about this last time, this is called the Areopagus, which is a Greek word meaning Mars Hill. This was where Paul debated the philosophers, the Greek philosophers in Acts chapter 17 on this. Nothing was ever built on it. It's just this big, open, rocky hill where the people would gather to discuss, to debate, to argue, and to listen to one another. A couple other things you'll be able to see from the top of the Acropolis. As you look down, you'll see this, the Temple of Hephaestus, which is one of the best preserved temples from ancient Greece in the world. You can see by the people here, you know, how we're talking 40 feet tall, but again, remarkably well preserved. And one more thing you can see from the Acropolis, and if you might have time, if you'd like to go explore on your own, which you will have time, is the Agora. Now this is a modern reconstruction. This was built, I believe, in the 1960s, but this was the huge marketplace where the Greeks would come and they would buy and trade. Very often when Paul would go to town, to some Greek city, he'd go to the Agora, and there he would see the merchants and everyone else, and Paul would start to talk to them about Jesus. So those are just some of the things you will see when we are at the Acropolis in Greece, one of the many places we will see. And as time went by, the Parthenon's still there. In Byzantine periods, it became a Byzantine church. This was at the Parthenon was actually a Greek church for centuries. And then I shared with you last time, the Parthenon stood complete until the year 1672, I think, when the Venetians were fighting the Turks, and the Turks had turned the Parthenon into their gunpowder storage locker. And a Venetian shell landed in the Parthenon, blew the whole thing up. So all the damage you see today is not from ancient times, it's from 350 years ago. Up until that time, the Parthenon stood in very good shape. This is a photo of what the Acropolis looked like in the 19th century. Remnants of Turkish, Ottoman fortresses up on top as well. And today it's been turned into this amazing, amazing tourist site, and you will see people everywhere. I'll just stop. Do you have any questions about what I shared with you very briefly about the Acropolis? We're going to have a great guide. I believe we have the same guide this trip we had in 2018, who was the head of the Greek Tour Guide Association. He's really good, and he'll tell us all a lot better than I do. So the next place we're going to go when we're in Rome is to go to the Forum, which was like the Capitol Plaza in DC. This was the heart of the Roman Empire, and it's an amazing place with all kinds of things in it. Next one. Aerial view, Colosseum we'll talk about, and over here is the Forum, all within nice walking distance. You'll have a wonderful time going there. Rome, if you remember your history at all, is built on 7 different hills. And the most important one is the Palatine Hill. And that's where all the good stuff we're going to see is located. Okay, next one, please. And the Forum goes back to ancient times because Rome was founded in the 8th century BC. So even this is a diagram of Rome in the time of the Roman Republic, which is that ended during the time of the Emperor Augustus, who was emperor when Jesus was born. But it kept being added to and added to and added to and added to for centuries and centuries and centuries. It's just, this church. This is the 1962 church. And then there's the 1977 church. And then there's the 1989 church. And then there's the 1998 church here. Keeps getting added onto. That's what the Forum is like as well. On the Capitoline Hill is where the emperors had their palaces. And this is a reconstruction of what the emperor, who is considered divine, total complete power, could do. And so they had these amazing, amazing palaces. Next one. And they still stand today. These are the ruins of the emperor's palace. And it's next to a very important place, which we will go by. This doesn't look like much, okay? Here's the emperor's palace right there. The Everything else for the forum is back there. This was, okay, next one, the Circus Maximus. This was the great racetrack. This seated 100,000 people. I mean, Miller Park, I'm sorry. County Stadium there. American Family Field seats, I believe, about 44,000. 100,000 people. Here is the Imperial Palace. The emperor had his own private boxes. And again, this is where Circus Maximus, circus comes to the word circuit because you're riding around in a circuit. Maximus, big. So it's the big circuit, the big circle. And this is where all the chariot races we have heard about through history. Next one, this is where Ben-Hur, okay, 1959 Charlton Heston, okay, the great chariot race takes place in the Circus Maximus in Rome. And today it's still there. It doesn't look like a whole lot today, but I was really struck when we drove by it. I didn't know it existed. I'm going, and you can see people walking all around it. It's really something cool. So, all right. The Colosseum. Hard to miss the Colosseum. The Colosseum just means Colossus, big, okay? Eum is like the word museum, okay? The museum is the place of the muses, okay? So the Colosseum is the really big place in Rome. It was built in the late 1st century AD by the Emperor Vespasian, and when he died, his son Titus. And what we see today is the remnants of the Colosseum. Parts of it still exist. Much of the Colosseum was just stolen by the people of Rome to build houses over the course of 2,000 years. And so what we see is what is left, but what's left is truly amazing. Okay. And the Colosseum itself was truly amazing. It seated 50,000 people. It was built out of bricks, out of concrete. The Romans were masters at building out of concrete, out of limestone, and out of marble. Just an amazing, amazing place. Next one. And what is even more amazing is the Colosseum had an awning, okay? American Family Field has its roof that opens and closes. The ancient Romans actually had an awning that on sunny days, they would roll out. So the fans are in the shade. If you sit at Miller Park on a sunny afternoon, you do not want to be on the third base side because you're in the sun. In fact, in ancient Pompeii, there's an inscription about gladiatorial games being held, and the ads are still on the walls, painted on the walls of Pompeii, and it says the awnings will be in use because you want to be comfortable when you go to the games. They had gladiatorial combat. They fought wild animals. They would execute criminals there. And they even could flood the floor of the Colosseum and have mock naval battles as well. And we'll talk more on the trip about the Romans and their bloodlust and things we just can't imagine today. But for the Romans, they loved this kind of stuff. And the Colosseum was used dozens and dozens and dozens of days. Because is its famous statement that to keep the people happy, the emperor would give them bread and circuses, keep the people entertained. And so the Colosseum was one of the great entertainments in ancient Rome. In fact, so famous is it, I think I shared last time, I'm an ancient coin collector. And the Emperor Titus, who completed the Colosseum, he actually minted this coin. This coin, if you want one, cost $80,000, just so you know today. But he actually had the Colosseum engraved on the back of this big copper coin to honor this amazing, amazing construction. When you go into the Colosseum, this is what it looks like on the outside. Down here, this is really interesting. These are the gates you go into, and they're numbered in Roman numerals. LII, gate 52, LIII, gate 53, because you'd have tickets. They're usually probably little clay tablets, but it would tell you what gate you would go in. So you can see what it looked like on the outside, and imagine that's all polished, lots of it painted, has painted statues all over it. That's the amazing aspects of what it looked like. Okay, again, you can see the bricks. Almost 2,000 years old, 1,940 years old, okay? And these vaulted ceilings are still standing. It's just truly amazing Roman construction. And then today you can see, this was everything that was under the ground, under the arena floor. of the Colosseum. And an arena in Latin just means sand, okay? It would be a big sand floor. So this is where the animals were kept, where the ground crews were, where those gladiators waiting to come out, the poor Christians waiting to be dragged out. That's where they would be. And the Italian government has spent a lot of money renovating. They've actually put part of the floor of the Colosseum, the arena floor there, and they have concerts and other things there. So you'll get a chance to see all of this. That's a picture we took. So that's the kind of view you'll have when we're at the Colosseum. And then from the Colosseum, we're going to head over to the Forum, which was, again, the center of Roman government, religion, politics, and the monuments. Again, Washington, D.C. is known for all of its monuments, remembering the great men and women of the past. The Colosseum was the exact same way. Again, the beautiful view. This was taken at sunset, not my picture, but just gorgeous. Again, some of these are over 2,000 years old and they're still there. There are 3 huge triumphal arches in the Forum. This is the first one you'll see when we come in. It's by the Colosseum. This was the triumphal arch of the Emperor Constantine the Great, who ruled in the early 4th century AD. He is the emperor who legalized Christianity in the year 313 AD. And so his arch declares, he came to sole power after about 20 years of internecine bloodshed between various emperors and groups of the empire, each fighting each other. Constantine put that all down, brought peace again. And so this magnificent arch, again, you can see by the people how small they are, how huge this is. Inscriptions all over the place. That's the first one. The second arch we'll see, I talked about this, you can go to the next one. I talked about this last time, is the Arch of Titus, who is the emperor who finished building the Colosseum. Now his archway still stands. This inscription on top, one of the Pope Piuses, and I don't know which one it is, grabbed it and put his own sign on it, because that's what the ancients would do all the time. But what is really important about this one, I shared this with you last time, is Titus not only built the Colosseum, but from 66 to 70 AD, the Romans fought this horrific bloody war against Jewish rebels in Israel. Titus's father, Vespasian, was the general in command, but in the year 69, he became emperor, and so he left it to his son Titus to finish up the war. And in August of 70 AD, Titus led the Roman legions into Jerusalem. They burned the temple to the ground, the temple we hear about in all the gospel stories. They burned Jerusalem to the ground. And this column honors the defeat of the Jews. Come, next one. And again, this is one of the statues, or one of the friezes carved into the statue, into the archway. And these are these are Romans bringing back to Jerusalem all the treasures they took from the temple in Jerusalem. In fact, many scholars believe that the Colosseum was actually built with all the booty, all the gold, all the silver the Romans looted from the temple in Jerusalem. They brought it back to Rome and they used that to pay for the Colosseum. Okay, next one. And the third archway, again, you will not be quizzed on this, is at the far end of the Forum. And this is the archway of the Emperor Septimius Severus, who ruled in the late 2nd and early 3rd century. He's a very famous emperor, one of the last emperor in a time of peace for the Romans, and then everything just went like that after his death. A couple other things we'll see in the Forum. This doesn't look like much. It's a pretty building, but this is the Roman Senate house. This is where the Roman Senate met. In New Testament times, the building still stands. Think of that, 2,000 years old, and it's still standing. Next one, please. Again, you can see all these amazing buildings, some intact still, some are fragments, but this gives you an expanse of how big the Forum is. I mean, these are the people right there. This is huge, and built upon building upon building upon building, generation after generation, century after century. This building you will see, this is a temple dedicated to the Emperor Antoninus Pius and his wife Faustina, who ruled in the mid-2nd century. He was one of the good, there are 5, they're called good emperors, who brought peace and prosperity to Rome in the 2nd century. That time they called the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. So this is what it looked like in ancient times. That's what it looked like in the 17th century, when Rome was kind of a hick town, And a lot of these things had fallen into disuse. I mean, I love the dog and the cat down there. Okay, and this is what it looks like today. It has become a Christian church, but this amazing, and it still has the inscription up in the top where it's dedicated to Antoninus Pius and to his wife, the divine Faustina. She died during his reign, and he made her a goddess as well. So you'll get to walk by that as well. And you will also get to see such things. This is not overly impressive. Looks like a pile. That is the tomb of Julius Caesar, the traditional place of the tomb of Julius Caesar in the Forum. As you walk by, it's really hard to miss. I'm sure our guide will point it out to you. But all the greats who made Rome what it was put their mark on the Forum. All right, with that, speaking of Julius Caesar, here are some other things you might want to see in Rome. We were discussing today working up plans for free time in Rome. We hope to give you a good chunk of free time to do whatever you want. Here are some places you might want to go see. This one I love. My wife and I and our daughter Samantha were in Rome in 2018. And our last night, we just kind of wandered around and we ended up here. This is an archaeological park. This is the site where Julius Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC. And to give you an idea about how much time has passed, this is the modern street level. Way down there, it's about 20 feet. That's ancient Rome. 20 feet of building has gone up over those 2070 years since Julius Caesar. But what's really cool about this is it's a cat sanctuary. We have 3 cats. We have Molly and Momo and Mina, and we love our cats. And we came across this, and this is a cat sanctuary. So when you look into it, you will see cats all over the place. And there's a group that takes care of them. They feed them. They pay all their vet bills. They take care of them. And when we were there, you couldn't go down, but I have heard that now that is available. So on your free day, if you like cats, if you like Julius Caesar, you might want to think of going there. I just thought that was such a, and there's a great gelato shop across the street too. This is the Pantheon, Greek word, which means all the gods. This was built by, during the reign of Caesar Augustus, okay, the emperor who was emperor when Jesus was born. And Pantheon in Greek means all the gods. This temple was built to honor all the gods. This building is over 2,000 years old, and it is magnificent. It has this amazing, I think it is the biggest freestanding dome in the world, okay? There's no glass there. That is open to the elements. Next one, please. And originally, these niches, it's now a Christian church, but originally it held statues of all the gods because this is a temple that honors all the gods. And what's really cool here, we don't want rain while we're there, but when it rains, there's a circular stone in the middle underneath that open area, and the rain comes right down and falls there. Because again, this is open to the gods. It's open to the elements. It's open to the weather. That's how they built it. 2,000 years later, it's still there. You might want to stop at the Castel San Angelo, which is the tomb of this emperor, Emperor Hadrian, one of my favorite emperors. He was emperor from 117 to 138, one of the good, great emperors. And when he died, he built a very modest tomb for himself. It is now a papal palace, but this next picture gives you an idea of what it looked like. It actually had a forest on it. Okay, and around here, there's actually a forest planted up there to honor Hadrian, who became a god at his death as well. And you will also see in Rome, you will cross some bridges that are over 2,000 years old. Now, again, how long do our construction projects last? All the talk of tearing down the 794 bypass, okay, the Hone Bridge, all that wonderful stuff. You'll get to travel over bridges that are 2,000 years old.
2,000 years to put up.
Yeah, yeah. The Baths of Caracalla. Well, I know we drove by them last time, but in your free time, you might want to go and check them out. The ancient Romans loved hygiene, and they had these enormous, I mean, this place is huge, these enormous public baths where the citizens could come and you could have hot baths, regular temperature baths, and cold baths, okay? All these amazing things. And they, again, were decorated this 1,800 years later. You can still see the paintings in some of these rooms. Again, these amazing civic projects that were built in Rome. And then Trajan's Arch. Emperor Trajan was emperor from 98 to 117, one of the greatest military general Rome had besides Caesar Augustus. And he built this, you can go to the next one, this enormous pillar to honor his victory over people called the Dacians, who lived in what's modern day Romania and Hungary. And again, in Roman tradition, everything was painted. Okay, next one. And this is what it looks like today. And there's a circular design going up to the arch, or up the column, which depicts all the different elements of Trajan's battle against the Dacians. And originally there was a statue of himself on a horse on top. Now there's a statue of St. Peter, because the church owns it all. So, and again, in Roman style, so famous was this that the Romans Trajan minted this gold coin called an Arius. That, and here's his column. Okay, and there's the statue of him on top, okay? This one's only about 17,000. So if you're thinking of gifts for the pastors for the trip, keep those in mind. Almost done. Another place you might want to go to is Trajan's Forum, a huge market area in Rome built by that same Emperor Trajan. So much of it, all of these are all stores. Those are all stores, okay? Up here, all stores. People could go and shop and buy. That's what it looked like in ancient times. A lot of it still stands, and one more. And hey, he made a coin depicting it, okay? In fact, underneath in Latin, it says the Forum Trajan, Trajan's Forum, to honor his amazing, amazing work. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of what you might want to do and might want to see. And we'll talk about this a lot more. If you like history, if you like architecture, if you just like going, wow, you're going to see a lot of stuff that will enable you to do that. And so it's coming up 2.5 months, and we look forward to having you join us on the trip. So thanks. Any questions? All right, thank you.
If you didn't pick those up right now, I'm gonna put up what we had. Let's see. All right, and let's see. All right. Could everybody hear at home okay? Still? Give me a thumbs up if you
Yes.
can. Okay, good.
Yep.
Good. All right. So I'm putting up on, we've handed these sheets out. Hopefully you can see at home also what we are going to talk a little bit about. So we mentioned this last time, and we're just going to say it again this time. Just a reminder to think about your clothing as we get closer. We're going to be thinking about the weather. Really important to always think about your shoes. Did I tell a story last time about one of the ladies that came on one of my trips in the past and how she had just bought new shoes? And she was in pain the entire trip with blisters. So you want to wear in your shoes and make sure they're very comfortable. Probably the most important thing you have on this trip is comfortable shoes, right? Good walking shoes. So don't try and be stylish. Just get some good shoes. And I always say, we do a fair amount of walking on these trips, right? I'm not sure what the average number of steps are, but it's really helpful to just start walking, and get used to that. That's just a good thing anyways, right? But the more you do, when you're on that trip, you're going to appreciate the trip that much more. You're not going to be as exhausted. You're not going to have as much trouble. So just that reminder to really think about that. We always want to say we have a busy day. We'll have lots going on up through usually around supper time. But if I've had people on our trips where it's like, I'm full. I can't take any more. I just need to rest. And I'm not even gonna go with you today. I'm just gonna stay at home. I'm gonna stay at home. I'm gonna stay at the hotel and rest, or I'm just gonna go sit at a coffee shop. It's your trip. So we don't want to lose you, right? So don't wander too far away, but we need to give you that. So recognize that. So if you're just exhausted and you just need to rest, we understand that. I always say on these trips, think about really think about how you're feeling. You don't want to push yourself. I know in November a few of us got sick, including myself, but think about your body, think about how you're doing, and listen to your body, as they say, you know. So so we just want to mention that we are gonna, I don't know if we talked about this last time, I don't think we did, but after the day is done, there's and after we've had our dinner, there's usually some time where probably not every day, but like, you know, almost every other day, Pastor Paul gives a chance for us to come together and decompress and digest everything that we've seen and heard. And I always love what Yair does. He won't be on this trip, but kind of think back of what we saw. Let's reflect on it a little bit more, bring in some text that we can maybe look at. So Paul in his knowledge will help us to do that. So good chance to go get a beer and then join us, or a glass of wine if you're a wine drinker, and just, you know, just enjoy being together, but also just really digest what
Especially on days where we visit a biblical site. We'll talk about especially from the book of Acts. Here's the story, and chance to bring all your questions too. I can't guarantee an answer, but you can bring your questions.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's a good, I forget who did that on our last trip, where journaling is the one. I think it was Butch.
Butch
did a lot with journaling and, you know, writing it down so that when you get back, you go, oh yeah. And how does this tie into that and things like that? So good stuff that way. Just a reminder that we've got a website that has a little bit of it, but we'll add to that as we go. So one of the things I try to do with that is add a page where it'll have more information and links you can go to and look at, and then we post the photos there afterwards and things like that. So so that website will continue to help us. And I think I mentioned MARF last time. It's just that mandatory, absolute, rigid flexibility, right? We need to be flexible on these trips. It might be the kind of thing where we're planning the day before we thought it was going to go this way, but then suddenly, I don't know if anyone is coming from downtown out here today, like me. And traffic was stopped up until the zoo, going towards Miller Park or American Family. So, if it's the kind of thing where they say, it would be just better for us to flip our schedule and do one thing later, and it just because of traffic or something's happening over there, we're just going to flip it. We all need to be flexible with that, because they're really trying to set it up for our benefit, to not be stuck waiting, things like that.
Athens and Rome, think Chicago. When you think traffic, and size. That's what you have in Athens and Rome.
Yeah, it's huge. I'm going to turn it over to Gail to talk about trip insurance a little bit.
Where do you want me to stand? Do I have to stand any place, or?
I want you to stand and just
Right
face,
here?
just naturally stand.
Does
however
it
you
make
wanna
it?
stand.
Okay, I can stand right there. Can I stand behind it? No, I guess I have to stand.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, one thing that I'm going to mention that Paul didn't talk about is the free day and free time. You also have the option, and we did this on the last trip, you have the option of going down to Pompeii. But you have to find, the hotel can help you with that. You have to find a tour that goes to Pompeii, or some of you may want to take a train up to Florence. So, and there is time to do that. So you might consider some optional places far from Rome that you might want to go to. And
Italy has high speed
sometimes-
rail,
I'm sorry.
150 miles an hour, so you can get there fast.
Oh, right. And sometimes you've been inundated with archaeology and art and everything else, and you just want to see something else. So feel free to think about doing something like that. And we'll make sure that we have information on that when we're on the trip. Okay, so Cost and trip information. Okay, the insurance, travel insurance, how many of you have navigated that already? Okay, how many of you are blown away by how much it cost? Right, it's very expensive. I just want to mention the option of not getting trip insurance to cover the cost of the trip, but instead getting your trip insurance to cover the cost of medical emergencies. Medical emergencies are the most expensive thing that could happen to you on the trip. If you lose the cost of the trip, you've lost $5,000. If you lose the cost of the insurance coverage, if you don't have medical insurance, you're not going to lose just $5,000. You're going to triple, quadruple that amount. So think about, the importance of having the medical part. The last trip that we had to have insurance because of COVID, and it was required. But now you have that option of deciding how you want to do it. The website that is on the app is a good one to go to, but there are other ones that you can use. Dale, you went to ARP, did that? Okay. I'm sorry, AAA, yeah, I'm that's the wrong thing, yeah. Right, okay. Has anybody else had?
I've used Travel Guard in the past, Travel Guard.
What's another one, right, okay, all right,
There's
got it,
a lot
okay.
of people who will sell you insurance.
The one thing that can change a little bit on the cost of the trip for the airline will be the airline, the airport tax and possibly a fuel surcharge. Well, we've seen the fuel kind of moderate now, so maybe it will just, maybe they'll keep it going like it is now. That is very rare that is an increase in your cost. The last time that happened was years ago, and I remember it was about a $30 per person increase. So it probably won't be anything significant if it does go up. Okay, and then your transportation to the airport. If you so wish, you can go on the shuttle, which I will arrange. From here, we will leave from St. John's to O'Hare, and then we will be picked up at O'Hare when we return and come back. That cost has historically been between $80 and $90 per person round trip. You can come here, park your car over in the far corner of the parking lot, and or you can have someone drop you off. It doesn't make any difference. So that's about all I have to say. Any questions on that angle? Okay.
When do you need to have one?
The head count for the shuttle, I will have to have about 2 weeks prior to the trip. And you will pay based on how many people are sharing the cost of the shuttle. That will be, so that could go up or down depending. And we won't need a big bus or anything like that. We'll just need a van. I think their vans are 33 passenger. That's usually what they give us. Okay, good. All right, over to you, Chris.
Right. So on our sheet, I do have the different hotels that we've got and the link to the cruise line. On the email I sent out to you, we talked about excursions. I think we talked about this a little bit last time too. With our trip, we have 2 excursions already worked into the price of the whole trip, and that is to Ephesus. So we will have, once we get off the boat, they'll have a coach bus for us. They'll take us in and to go see Ephesus, which is one of my favorite sites. It's really, really special. And that's obviously where Paul was for the Ephesians. We'll also do an excursion to the island of Patmos, where John wrote Revelations, and we'll see the monastery there. That's a pretty spectacular site as well. The other islands we stop at, so we'll stop at Crete, we'll stop at Santorini, we will stop at Mykonos, They'll have other excursions that you could purchase if you wanted to. You really don't need to. You don't need to do and really enjoy yourself. There'll be wonderful things to just walk around and see. So I won't be purchasing anything. I don't know if probably the biggest opportunity is in Crete, where you can go see another it's not a temple, it's a castle of Knossos, where they'll drive you in and they'll take you around. And I did that last time. I think the two of you have done that as well. And it's nice, it's impressive. Crete is beautiful too. So, there's lots to see in downtown Crete. So you don't need to, but if you want to, you can purchase that. I think it was around $75, something like that. Yeah, 75 to 90 a person. So there will be options that way. You can pay for it on the cruise. You can go up to the main desk and add yourself to it, but they'll still bring you into Crete and you can wander around, see the beautiful sites there, get, food and coffee and all sorts of wonderful wine, all the wonderful things. And the same with Mykonos and Santorini, just beautiful locations. There's, like I said, you can choose other excursions, but you really don't need to have a great time. So you'll probably want to bring spending money because there'll be things to buy, lots of shops, food, and those kind of things, but you don't need to necessarily do the excursions. I sent out in the email the drink package. To be clear on that, our tour company's like, you don't really need the drink package. They're not selling us on the drink package. They're like, you're gonna have a drinks at all your meals. You're gonna have coffee at your meals. You're gonna have juice at your meals. You're gonna have all the things you're gonna want to have. There will be wine at the dinner. There'll be beers you can have too. So you can have all that at those times. But if you're somebody that really wants to have more, you can do that. You can purchase an upgrade and get a special, I think it's a special wristband where you can show them your wristband and get more wine and more beer and things like that at different times. So if you're somebody that really enjoys that, that's great. You can also just go to the bar and purchase it too. So it's kind of half dozen one, half dozen the other. Do you come out ahead or not? And it's up to you. So, and you can purchase that on the ship as well. So we won't do that necessarily ahead of time. There's also, I sent out the cabin layout where you can purchase up. I know several of you did that. If you want to, you can. We're scheduled to be above. So we have a porthole is kind of the idea. So that we're not in the lowest level, we're up. I think you talked about this maybe last time. The theory is that as people come in, they want the cheaper rooms. And so it actually raises everybody up levels. So more than likely, well, we can't guarantee it, but possibly we won't even be at the level we're at now. They could be raising us up. But if you want to pay the extra amount and go up to a higher level, you can do that. Let me know. We'll tell the company, they'll send you another invoice for the difference. It wasn't that crazy when you looked at the amount. So if you want to do that, you're welcome to do that.
Were those prices, was that per cabin or per person?
I'd have to look back at my sheet. I forget.
I'll check. Per person, okay.
I forget, but it was like $100 or something on a lot of those. So even if it's $100 per person, it's, not too bad. But also just a reminder that you're probably not going to be in your cabin that much. So even if we're on the cruise and maybe we're moving from place to place and you've got 4 hours there's lots to do on the cruise, and we can all go sit in a group and have a glass of wine or whatever. So I don't know how you'll probably be sleeping in your cabin. That's, but it's really up to you. If you want more comfort, you can do that. Any questions on any of that? All right. Well, let me know if you do want to do any of those things. Yeah.
These add-on tours, when do you arrange them and how do you find out more about them?
I think I sent a link to all the options. If I didn't, if we can't find that, I can resend it. In the one I sent out today as a reminder, I sent out the reminder, but I included what I sent before so you could find all the points. If it's not in there, I've got a link. possibly, but I know I've got an additional link that takes you to the excursions. So if I didn't send that, I can send that out and you can see. And they've got all sorts of options, you know, riding donkeys and all sorts of things, you know. So so yes, we can do that. All right. So I can shoot that to you. But it is the kind of thing that if everybody said we want to go to Kenosis, for example, and we booked it early, then we'd probably get like a $10 discount, you know, that kind of thing. If it's one or two people, you're not really going to get a discount, and you could just book it on the trip. So on the ship. So, but yeah, I can shoot that to you so you can look at it and see what the options are. Okay. But again, there's lots to do without even doing the excursions. I mean, sometimes it's nice to be carted around and taken exactly to a spot and given a tour, those kind of things. But you might be at that point where like, I need to stop listening to people talk to me, you know, I need a break. So it's really up to you though. And we have those options. I've got the airline schedule on there as well. We'll see how that affects, if that changes at all. It's always like, especially as it gets closer and the schedules are getting tighter and things move. And so we are going to have one more, I'm speaking for the three of us, we haven't talked about this, but one more final meeting, much closer. So probably late June, early July, we'll have to figure that out. Yeah, I know that's the problem. So probably right after the 4th. And that's just one of those, usually right around that time, everybody's like, okay, now really tell me what I need to know. And what do I need to pack? You know, things like that. So we'll have those. We want to have that option for people to just be able to ask the questions that you have. And you can always call us or email us or text us if you have questions. We're happy to talk with you about it. But it's good to have that final meeting. Jan, yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. Do we leave Chicago at 10 in the morning or 10 at night?
Yeah, I didn't have that on there. I think we fly out at 10 at night.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but you know, you have to be there probably a good 3 hours.
Right.
3 hours. We have to be there 3 hours early. And that means an hour and a half from here. And it takes us a good half an hour to load the bus and take all the pictures. You know, Pastor Chris takes lots of pictures. So, so it's probably going to be around 5 o'clock that we're meeting here. And then, you know, we fly out at 10 at night. And so bring your melatonin and make sure you're ready to sleep on the plane and all those good things. The nice thing is though, they're 8 hours, 7 hours ahead, something like that. And so when we get there, it's going to almost be nighttime. So it'll be like, even though we're really tired, we'll probably just go to bed. So things like that. Yeah. Yeah, our hotel is really close to the Acropolis. It's closer than the one I was in when we were there. And even the one I was in, which was another 10 minutes out, had this beautiful view. And so we're going to be that much closer, and it's lit up at night, and it's, yeah. And if you look at the link on the website, it's got a beautiful restaurant bar up on the top with a pool, and it's going to be very nice. So we'll probably want to throw our stuff in a room, go upstairs and just sit for a little bit. So really nice. Yeah. Deb. I don't. I think it's not long.
Oh, wait a minute. No. That's a good question.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think you said it was a couple hours at least, yeah.
We can let you know.
That sounds right.
They have that nice museum there, and the what's his name without the ear? There you go. Van Gogh's museum in the airport.
Really?
Yeah, okay, you want both layovers, yeah.
We'll let you know. Any questions at home? Brian, Joan, Linda, Jan? Can you hear me? It's like the 7th grade Sunday school class that just stares at you like.
I have a question. Is there
Yeah.
a limit on luggage or?
A limit on luggage. That's a great one for the, right on that last trip or that last meeting.
Okay,
Usually it's 50 pounds. Even though, and we always say, there will be people that will help us, move it from the bus to, to the room and things like that. You still have to manage your luggage to a certain amount of, to a certain extent. So bringing 2 huge suitcases plus a backpack, plus a bag, and a carry-on, it's still yours. You still have to manage it at some point. So don't go crazy with packing. So probably 1 suitcase, 1 carry-on and a bag is probably what would be recommended. So,
okay.
all right. And I won't do any of that because I bring so much stuff with me. So I bring all my camera stuff. So
Payment with anything that we might purchase, whatever, that would be best done with our credit card.
credit cards work well. Yep, that would probably be best.
Is there any reason to bring American money?
Well, it's always good to have some amount of cash, yes.
Which will
So,
not be accepted. You'll have to convert.
we'll have to
into euros.
change it.
Everywhere we are will be euros
Yeah. And I think you can do that in the airport.
Yeah.
In
or at an ATM.
they sh- Yeah. Oh, yeah. They'll take the cash. Yeah, we'll get into tips. We'll figure that out by next time too. We haven't talked about that yet, but and one thing we did with tips in the past, just to make it easy on everybody, is we figure out all the different tips we're gonna need and then say, if you'd like to just give us X amount of dollars, we'll take care of that. If you want to give above and beyond because you just thought this person was the bomb, you can do that. But it usually works best to just the group does it, and then we're not all sitting there handing out cash. So, but again, you can always give more if you want, so we'll figure that out for the next time too. Any other questions from the group? Like I said, that last meeting always helps with all these fine details. Question, Linda,
How many hours are we actually on the flight?
a whole bunch.
About 11?
I forget. I don't have the exact layover amount and all that. It's probably about, I think the flight is usually around 8 or 9, something like that. That'd be great. Gail will round that up for us.
Okay.
So yeah, it's usually around 8 now from O'Hare to where we're going. So we'll let you know.
Okay.
And by that time we have our next meeting, we'll be getting into, they should be finished with any sort of maneuvering of airline schedules and that kind of thing. Hopefully so. So, all right. Any other questions? Are you getting excited?
Yep.
It's gonna be a great trip. It's a wonderful experience. I mean, the beauty of this trip is not only you get to go to these incredible sites like we talked about tonight, it's also got this huge faith story underneath it. And, talking about Paul and how he really, his footsteps, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of miles, really impresses upon us about what it means to be a person of faith and sharing faith, and that call upon our own lives, right? To be people of faith and think about how we let our own story impact the world. So
I love the way Deborah brought out faith.
yeah,
Grace.
grace, yes. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll close in prayer.
Just an encouragement, if you know of anyone who still might be interested.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yes. Yeah, we still have some space on this trip. So We would love to have at least 2 more people. So if you know of a couple or other people that want to come, it's, you know, it's going to be a wonderful trip. So please let people know. And we are at that point where they've, you know, we'll still have to try and get some more seats because they let a whole bunch go because the deadline was around that May 1st deadline. That's why they wanted monies in by then. But we can still do that. So, but, you know, it'd be great to have some people. So right now we're at 21 people going. So, okay. Yep, I can, like I said, well, I'll start to do that directory. And everybody can see that, and then I can start to add photos to that too. So if you have a photo you want to send to me, email to me, I can add that to that and we can create that little sign in. So people can see it. Let's close in prayer. All right, let's pray. Dear great and gracious God, thank you so much for bringing us together for this opportunity that's just beyond words. It'll be wonderful to be in these locations and see the history, but even more impressive is hearing your word, hearing how Paul shared your word throughout that region, that entire region, hearing about his life, his story, and all that he did. We just are looking forward to this experience. Bless us as we continue to prepare and our hearts and our minds to get ready for this trip. And we just thank you for this opportunity. As we go tonight, we ask that you help us to rest so that we can wake up ready to serve you again tomorrow. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone at home. Good night.
Thank
Yay.